现在订阅同盟会英语，不论找工作、升学或英检，表现更棒。快上
StudioClassroom.com。
现在请收听教学节目。
Advanced Studio Classroom is on the air. Taking a look behind the curtain of this Hollywood masterpiece. Oh, there it is. The shark gotcha.
I love the music.
Getting pulled beneath the waves by a 25-foot great white shark who lurks beneath the waters in the film Jaws. Mm-hmm. I am your host, David. Today is day 2 of our article, our leadership article, The Making of Jaws. It's February 2nd, 2021. And I am happy to be joined here discussing this fascinating article with 2 wonderful panelists.
Hi, I'm Manya, and it's great to be back. This is such an interesting topic. I'm really enjoying our conversations.
And I'm Gabe, and I'm happy to be back too in this great movie. You know, I actually just saw it for the first time recently.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I held off for a long time because I've seen a lot of other, sea creature type movies, like Deep Blue Sea, the piranha, some of those piranha movies that are just kind of funny. And a lot of them are just kind of B movies. They just kind of have that sub-quality feel to them. And so I thought, okay, maybe Jaws is just going to be kind of like that, except, really long. And when I saw it, I was like, wow, no, this is actually pretty good. Of course, no wonder. It's directed by Steven Spielberg. And it actually introduced a lot more about the interaction between people than I was expecting. And politics even. Stuff that I just thought, this movie is about man versus shark. But no, it's actually a lot of other stuff going on in the movie that makes it quite interesting.
That's what makes it a good movie. That's what makes the story so interesting. Actually, one of my favorite scenes in the movie, there's a part of the movie where it's a group of people, kind of like a town hall meeting, and they're all in this room talking about whether or not they should build this beach resort or something. And there's some guys are saying oh, there's a shark out there, let's go and get us. And other people are like, well, we'll just take care of it in this easy way. Yeah. And then in the background, it's Richard, what's his name?
Robert Shaw.
That's
his first appearance in the movie, I think.
Yeah, his first appearance in the movie. It's just all these people are arguing, and then just there's a sound of his nails on a chalkboard, and everyone looks back, and there's this, kind of scruffy looking old sailor who's like, "Yar, I know the shark ye be talking about." He doesn't talk like that, but it's that kind of feeling.
Yep.
But before we get too carried away with that, I would like to ask you guys, as we're talking about this behind the scenes look and to the movie Jaws, I would like to ask you guys if there are any movies that you would love to have a behind-the-scenes look at. Like if you could be there and have someone take you around and show you how all the effects were done. What movie do you think you would choose to take a peek behind the curtain of?
Are you talking about movies that have been made already and there are actually behind-the-scenes footage that you can watch? Or no. If you could go back in time and be on the set while they're making it?
Let's say go back in time and be on the set, yeah.
Go back in time. Well, Winnie the Pooh. No, I'm just playing. No, I mentioned that yesterday. Forrest Gump is a movie that comes to mind. It's one of my favorite movies.
Yeah.
So, also Steven Spielberg directed and starring Tom Hanks. It's filmed in so many different locations. And, I think that would be fun to go see. Or just to kind of see how it was made.
Yeah.
The making of.
For sure.
The things they had to deal with.
Yeah. That would be really interesting. How about you, Manya?
I would pick Homeward Bound.
About the animals?
Yes.
Yes, it's about 2 dogs and a cat trying to go home.
Oh, yeah.
And I would just love to see how many cats did they really have?
Right,
How many
yeah.
dogs were there? How did they make them jump from that place to that place?
Yeah.
Because it's a very, it's an outdoors movie. It's a children's film, but I loved it as a kid. And I just thought, wow, how did they film all of this? Because it was really out in the nature.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm just curious how they trained the animals and how the director got the shots that he wanted.
Yeah, children and animals are some of the hardest things to control on a set.
Yeah.
Anywhere.
It's, whether it's on camera or off camera.
What about you, David?
Me, I think I was kind of going around in my head. There are a couple movies that come to mind, like Waterworld. I mentioned that yesterday. But I wouldn't want to deal with Kevin Costner because he's not a very nice person. So I don't know if I want to be there, like hanging out with him.
Does he listen
I've
to
seen-
Advanced, by the way? We're not sure.
I think we need to call him up, and maybe he could, if we can get him on the show. But I actually think I would choose Alien. Yeah,
Wow.
one of my favorite movies of all time is a movie, Alien Star. Yeah, I can't remember I often forget the name of the director. I don't think it's Ridley Scott. Is it Ridley Scott?
I think it was J.K. Rowling.
It definitely was not J.K. Rowling. However, what I do know is that it was starring one of my favorite actresses, Sigourney Weaver, who just did a tremendous job. There's also a cat in that movie. I would also like to know how many cats there really were, that they had to use to film the movie. But the reason why I would love to be behind the scenes of that movie is because it did the cinematographers and the set designers did such an amazing job creating a convincing spaceship floating, hundreds of light years away from Earth on some mission to get resources from a distant planet, completely alone in the void, just a couple of people in this giant spaceship with a killer alien on the loose, in the ship. And the lighting was on point. The atmosphere was perfect. Like, what made you actually scared in that movie was not the scenes where the alien was there, but the scene where you didn't know whether it was there or not, And that's actually something that we're going to talk about in today's section of this article, is that sometimes the imagination of your imagination scares you more than actually seeing the monster. The suggestion of the terror, is more frightening than seeing it for what it is. And that movie did a great job at that. Similarly, because of basically constraints that they had. It was made in the late 70s. They didn't have computer-generated graphics and stuff, so they were really limited in being able to make something convincing just using props and models and clay and plastic and stuff. So it's like the idea is don't show the monster that much so that people can't see, that it's something we just put together, and then create atmosphere, to give the suggestion of the monster. I think that's really great. So I would love to be on the set of that movie. So we got Alien, Homeward Bound, and Forrest Gump. Yeah.
Winnie the Pooh.
Yeah, Winnie the Pooh. Oh man, maybe if the directors of those films happen to be listening to this radio show, maybe we'll get some tickets. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I guess
To
tickets
his
to
next-
what? That's a good question. Wait a minute. Tickets back in time to go see what they make it? Okay, maybe not. But maybe they send us some behind the scenes footage. Anyway, we're going to get into our first reading here. We're going to be learning more about how some of the challenges that Spielberg had when making this movie and some of the amazing ways that he and his crew were able to turn those obstacles into opportunities. Let's hop into our first reading now.
The shark was the star of the film. In the original storyboards, the shark plays a prominent visual role during the attack on the female swimmer in the opening scene. But the mechanical shark rarely worked, causing Spielberg to invent creative ways to suggest the shark rather than show it. What seemed like a constraint actually helped the audience make a genuine emotional connection. Experiencing the shark through the eyes and emotions of the film's characters causes viewers to put themselves in the same situation. We've all been in the ocean and considered what might lurk below. As Spielberg said, it's what we don't see that's truly frightening.
Gabe, do you remember the opening scene of Jaws?
Yeah.
What happens?
If I share, it's kind of a spoiler, isn't it? I mean, the opening scene of Jaws, there's a campfire, some kids. It's kind of a hippie scene, it looks like. And then a guy and a girl go running off. Seems like they don't really know each other. But, they just go running off into the ocean. And he's drunk, so he decides not to go in the ocean, but he lays down on the beach. And but she gets in the ocean, and the next thing you know, or the next thing he knows, she's not there anymore.
You hear this dun-dun, dun-dun.
I've seen that
Dun,
scene
dun, dun,
before.
dun, dun, dun. You seen this scene?
It's
Yeah.
terrifying.
It is terrifying. And what's amazing about it is that you don't see the shark in that scene.
You don't see the shark for a majority of maybe the first 2/3 of the movie.
Yeah. It doesn't pop out until closer to the end. Now, we see here, as our writer describes, in the original storyboards, right? The storyboards are, Manya, what are the storyboards of a movie?
The storyboards are drawings or visual representation of how the movie's supposed to look like.
Exactly. And in the original storyboards, the shark was played a very prominent visual role. You saw it all the time. I mean, I don't know if you saw it all the time.
It was supposed to be the main character.
Yeah. It was the 男主角 the movie, right?
Yeah.
Was the shark. But as for reasons that we'll kind of get into later on, it did not turn out to be that way, not visually. The shark was still the main character, but just not visually. Apparently, the mechanical shark rarely worked, which forced Spielberg to find some inventive ways to suggest the shark rather than show it. So the camera work in that opening scene and in many other scenes, it won't show the shark. It'll actually show kind of things from an underwater perspective, as if you're seeing what the shark is seeing.
Yeah.
And you're also seeing what the people above the water are not seeing, and that's what scares you. Because you are a people, right? You are in the water. However, you're seeing things from the perspective of the shark. So it makes you think about all those times you went to the beach.
Actually, they built a mechanical shark, like it says in the article. But the reason it didn't work is because they built this shark and they tested it in fresh water, and it worked. But then going out to the sea, the water was salt water. And that's when parts of the mechanical shark would just start falling apart. So they would fix it all the time, and then it would just keep breaking. So then Spielberg thought, what would Hitchcock do? He just wouldn't show the shark.
That's brilliant.
That just goes to show you got to have physicists on the set when you're creating a movie so that they know what's going on from the beginning. Everybody who's supposed to have all the expertise for all that other scientific stuff. Yeah.
The difference between saltwater and freshwater. I heard also that one of the sharks, because they had more than one mechanical shark, right? And I heard that one of them actually just sank to the bottom of the ocean. And it was just down there until they could find a way to pull it back up. And once they did, it was totally useless. So that was like a ton of money that just sank to the bottom of the ocean.
Oh, man, it's going to freak some scuba diver out.
Right? Yeah.
Oh, no.
Seriously. Oh, no, it's a 25-foot shark. Oh, no, never mind. It's just an animatronic. That's what they call them, animatronic robot. Animatronic, I don't exactly know what that means. I think the anima has something to do with animation.
Yeah, animation. Kind of making it come alive or having that feel.
Yeah.
This reminds me of Disney. Man, I think of all those pioneers in movie making, like Walt Disney and Steven Spielberg, like when Disney was creating Disneyland and the Jungle Cruise area. And it's famous for having its animals, they're mechanical, they're animatronic operated, but they're created to look alive, right?
Yeah,
and they had to deal with a lot of the same kind of issues.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You never know what's going to happen, and the budget you have to deal with, and if things go wrong.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
And all of those kind of constraints that we were just talking about turned out to be ultimately towards the benefit of the movie, not because of the obstacles in themselves, but in terms of how they chose to navigate those obstacles. So what seemed like a constraint actually helped the audience make a genuine emotional connection. As we spoke before, the camera angles that they used, you know what I mean, kind of helped you experience the shark through the eyes and emotions of the film's characters, which really changed the nature of what made the film scary. Instead of seeing this shark and being like, oh, wow, look at the big shark, it's scary. We instead didn't see the shark. We saw what the shark was doing.
Yeah,
more
and
than
how
we
it was
saw.
making people react.
Yeah.
It was implying the shark,
Yes.
which was much scarier than seeing it.
Exactly. Imply the shark. So for all you folks out there that are working on a screenplay or a script for a horror movie, remember this. Imply the shark.
Oh, that should be a saying.
Yeah,
right?
it should be a saying.
Imply
right?
the shark.
Imply the shark. You need not see the monster. It is the Well, I don't want to get too philosophical. I just got really excited by a thought that I had, but
Well, it's kind of like the power of suggestion, right?
yeah, it's the power of suggestion. The monster is already in your mind. People are already afraid of things. Often all you need to do is suggest something that triggers the fears that already lurk in each of our hearts.
Yeah.
But before we
Are you
get
gonna
too-
write a poem,
Yeah,
David?
before we get too deep into that, we're going to hop into our next section, Sink or Swim, and get to know some of the other ways that they created the footage of, and the footage and the fear of sharks in this movie.
Sink or swim? The producers wanted real shark footage in the movie, so Spielberg hired Ron and Valerie Taylor to shoot footage of sharks off the coast of Australia. They built an undersized shark cage and used a 4'11" actor to play Hooper to make a 14-foot shark seem like a 25-foot shark. At one point, a shark got tangled in wires atop the cage, thrashing and rolling violently. But the actor playing Hooper, who was supposed to be killed by the shark, wasn't in the cage. So Spielberg changed the script, having Hooper escape the cage, swim to the bottom, and reappear after Chief Brody kills the shark. Even though not part of the plan, Spielberg was smart enough to embrace a happy accident.
Yeah, so we got two ways that they worked around the obstacles that they were faced with in the film. One is that the movie was about this massive 25-foot shark, right? But they couldn't find, they're not going to go out and find like a 25-foot great white shark because I'm not sure if that exists.
And even if they did find it, I don't know if they'd want to work with it.
Right, exactly. So how did they kind of get around this having real footage of sharks but not the shark from the movie?
They hired an actor who was 4 feet 11 inches, which is a lot shorter than the average man, and he played Hooper. And so visually, it just made the shark seem much bigger.
Right, yeah. Basically, this was a stunt guy, right, who stood in
As a double, right?
As a double for Hooper. And of course, he was, he had his scuba gear on and all that stuff, so you wouldn't see his face, really. So they didn't have to worry about, like, this guy doesn't look like Hooper, right? No worries. It just, he had a scuba suit on, so they could just put him in there and say, this is Hooper in the cage.
Yeah, I haven't seen that documentary that we talked about yesterday. But, at this point in our lesson, that was the first time I realized that they actually used a real shark for part of the movie. I just assumed that they just had the mechanical shark the whole time.
Right. Yeah, but the parts where there were sharks swimming around, those apparently, some of those were shot with real sharks. And it looks like there was actually something that happened, even a kind of a problem that happened with the real shark, the footage of the real shark that they were trying to get. Footage here, again, is just basically a piece of film, a segment of film, right? And at one point, there was a problem that arose while they were trying to film the real sharks.
Well, exactly. This is what was really interesting to me. They caught this shark getting caught or tangled in the wires, and the word we use in our lesson is thrashing. So it's kind of like making big, violent movements and rolling around in the water. And so that was actually a real shark that they caught on camera.
Yeah.
Doing all that, yeah.
For sure. Now, in the script, Hooper was supposed to be killed by the shark, but the actor wasn't in the cage when that happened, right? So apparently Spielberg changed the script. Imagine having to do that on the spot.
Maybe that's the blessing of having a somewhat unfinished script along the way was that he just changed it. They were doing everything so last minute, flexibly.
Yeah, so they ended up changing the script to make it so that Hooper escaped the cage, swam to the bottom, reappeared later after another scene happened in the movie. And I like how they kind of top off that paragraph. Even though not part of the plan, Spielberg was smart enough to embrace a happy accident.
Are you thinking who I'm thinking?
Oh, I don't know. What are you thinking?
I'm thinking about Bob Ross.
No, tell me.
He's a painter, an American painter, and every time he painted, and if he made a little mistake, he just called them happy little accidents.
I love
Then he just incorporated it into his painting.
Yeah.
I can just hear him saying that.
Yeah.
He had a
Do you
very...
see that there? That was a happy accident.
Yeah.
And that is a great way, that is such a great way to approach life, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I did a little bit of self-study back when I was in college of Chinese brush painting and calligraphy. And in a lot of the books that I was reading, there was a similar kind of idea, embrace everything that the brush does, incorporate it into the work, let it be, you know what I mean? Find some way to just move forward and let everything flow together in a way, which is very much what Spielberg did. And what Bob Ross did, right?
One word we might use for a situation like that is organic, right? Artists need to let their, whether it's they're acting on stage, let something happen organically, the relationship between you and somebody else on stage, or if you're creating a piece of art like Jaws, then you gotta, sometimes things happen organically as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we're going to learn more about how he kind of relied on his team as well to embrace these happy accidents and turn them into iconic moments in the film in our final reading.
Trust your team. A final example. Who knows a job better than anyone? The person who actually does that job. Spielberg's willingness to let his employees have a say in how their jobs were done added immeasurably to the end result. Chief Brody's iconic, "You're gonna need a bigger boat," wasn't in the script, but was ad-libbed by actor Roy Scheider. Final takeaways for entrepreneurs. You may not have the perfect plan, perfect employees, sufficient funding, or extensive resources. But what you do have is yourself and your willingness to work hard, embrace challenges, overcome roadblocks, and keep pushing toward your goal, no matter what happens along the way.
I really love the way that they talk about relying upon the people who actually do that job to come up with good ideas, right? Sometimes you have managers who will kind of micromanage, right? They'll try to make decisions for everybody. But that's not how Spielberg decided to do things, right, Manya?
No, he was very open to receiving feedback and suggestions from the crew or actors.
Yeah.
Do you remember that line in the movie, Gabe? You're going to need a bigger boat.
I certainly do. I remember exactly how he said it too.
How do you say it, Gabe?
Well, he's like, he's at the edge of the boat. I forget, there's a technical term for the edge of the boat. But anyway.
The stern.
Yeah, the stern. Yeah, he's looking out at the ocean.
The bow.
The bow
The
of
edge
the
of the
stern.
boat. He's at the edge of the boat.
Anyway, so and then he slowly backs up into the cabin, and that's when he kind of says his line, "You're going to need a bigger boat."
It's a very famous line.
It is. It's one of the top
Even if
three
you've never-
Hollywood quotes, I think.
Yeah, even if you've
Top
never seen
100
the movie, people often quote that line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's funny, there's another line like that is incredibly famous and was not scripted. You guys probably know what I'm referring to.
I probably do, but I don't know what you're thinking. When you say it, I'll know. What about Hold Me from Star Wars? Wasn't that?
No, not that one. No. But same movie. It was when Han Solo is is captured by the bounty hunter. He's about to be frozen in carbonite. They're on the Cloud City they're on Bespin Cloud City. Darth Vader's there. Luke Skywalker, Chewbacca's locked up. Princess Leia looks at him as he's being lowered down into this chamber, possibly to his death, says, "I love you." He looks at her, says, "I know." And then he's lowered down into the chamber. That line actually was not scripted. He was just supposed to say, awesome. I love you too. But that has become one of the most iconic moments.
I love it.
You know what I mean? In those movies. I love you. I know.
How romantic.
Yeah, I love it. Very Han Solo. Anyway, yes. So these are these famous lines where in both cases they were ad-libbed by the actor. Ad-lib just basically means improvised.
Yep, improvised.
Yeah, not plan. To say something without planning it beforehand. So, all right, how about these final takeaways for entrepreneurs, Manya?
You may not have the perfect everything, the perfect plan, or the perfect people around you, but as long as you have a willingness to work hard and to be open to whatever comes your way and working with that, then you're going to be okay.
That's right. The key is to embrace challenges, overcome roadblocks, keep pushing towards your goal. And I think an important thing to remember with that process of pushing towards your goal is to embrace those happy accidents.
Yeah. Well, I have 2 at home. One's 3 and one's about, almost a year.
That's right. You talked about that yesterday, right?
I embrace my happy accidents every day.
You sure do. That's wonderful. Yeah, in my life also, when things didn't work out with my initial plan, it took me a while to get over that my life was taking this totally different direction. But once I did, I found that I was able to be present where I was and to accomplish so much more than I would have ever accomplished by continuing to just try to make my plan work. Sometimes, in fact, every time, God's idea is just better than yours. It doesn't mean that at the slightest sign of difficulty you should try to change your plan, but it does mean keep pursuing a goal that you have, and when things come along, you make adjustments.
Keep pushing forward. And something that the last paragraph, I guess, didn't mention or review or recap was the idea of the other people that are there. Yeah. It does mention that you don't have perfect employees, but I like that previous paragraph that talks about, really hearing what other people on your team have to say and incorporating their ideas. Let them have a say in the decisions that you're making, the big ones in your project.
Absolutely. It's so important to receive the feedback from others with grace, right? Because you don't have the best ideas in the world. Entrepreneurs, business owners, you don't have the best ideas in the world. You have employees for a reason, not just to do what you want to do, but also to help guide your ideas into a better way sometime. In any case, it's been so great being here with you guys. We'll have to say goodbye for now, but thank you so much for joining us. Until next time, I'm David.
I'm Manya.
Gabe.
We're saying see you later.
Bye-bye.
Farewell.